takes all that you've got, but he's been here, just waiting for you to knock, to take his hand and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock.
Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. Tonight our guests are Scott, Anthony, and Aaron Hostetter. They are two youth ministers, and they are here to talk about youth ministry in general. They're going to give us tips and share from their experience about youth ministry, what works, what doesn't. And because I know we have a lot of young people out there who are maybe studying theology or catechetics and want to go into the field. And tonight we're going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of it.
Yes, they're going to set it right for us.
Yes,
Yeah.
Hostetter, you mean?
Hostetter. Yeah, they're going to tell us what's right and wrong with youth ministry.
That's right. On a serious note, if you remember a couple weeks ago, we prayed for Angela Faddis, and she is still with us. So we ask our audience to continue to pray for the Faddis family and for all the kids, and of course for Chris, who we spoke to on the phone. And you can look up and see how the status of the family there at on Facebook, and support Angela Faddis on Facebook. So just please keep the family in your prayers. It really moved a lot of people to see that show and to hear about her witness to the faith, and the whole family's witness during this great struggle they're in. You know, this past weekend, Doug, we had a great celebration, a family celebration in Phoenix. Doug and I went out. We did a Life on the Rock. We're going to air that Life on the Rock on September 22nd and September 23rd. The whole family celebration event will be aired. And so I guess it'll be aired the 22nd, actually, the Life on the Rock section, because we taped that on that Saturday. But what was it like for you out in Phoenix?
Oh, Phoenix, a lot warmer. It was hot down there, the sun and the dry, kind of a desert scenario.
Yeah, it's good insight.
But aside from all that, it was fantastic. I mean, just getting a chance to meet all you out there who came to visit us there, and just, you know, shake hands and high five and fist bump and anything else we can with just the different groups of people that come from the area. And we had a lot of people come in that were not from Phoenix. They came from around the area there, from Tucson, and even some from California and
New Mexico.
Mexico. And I just thought it's fantastic because these are great reminders that you know, we are family, you know, and we're the mystical body of Christ. You know, you get, you know, the different roles that we all play, but we are still one body, and we are, you know, brothers and sisters in the Eucharist. And I just find these events very exciting, but not just because of the getting together and the unity, but the theme. And the theme of this one was following God's call, you know, the Catholic in the public square. Right. And in today's world, I mean, you know, right now we got some serious trials, and we got an election coming up here in the not too distant future, and we as Catholics have got to really make our voices heard. There's a lot of attacks going on against Christianity in general, against religious freedom, and we have to be on target. We have to be in the public square, you know, in whatever way, whatever shape, form, capacity we can. Family conversations, school, work, especially in that voting booth. And we need to be putting God first, family, life. These issues have to be considered as the most important issues, even above the economy. Sorry, folks. Right? The economy is not the most important thing. Okay? Life is. Honoring God is. Freedom of religion. These things are the most important thing, not the economy. Tired of hearing that sometimes. Sorry, Father. I'm carried away there. But seriously,
it was
Catholic in the public square. The whole weekend was about really challenging us to really step up and get more active and really be that strong, faithful witness to Christ in our society.
Right. If we could move the Catholic voting bloc, you know, we have such power in this society.
It's huge.
You know, one thing that moved me and always moved me at these family events is just the witness of the people, and you can see how the network, God uses the network to work in the lives of people. I know as a priest, we hear a lot of confessions and talk to a lot of people and get to hear their stories. And I just want to thank the people for coming out and sharing themselves with us. And we get to see how the gospel works in people's lives. And that's very gratifying for us, and it encourages us. So I want to thank everybody who came out there and the powerful talks we did here from Mother Miriam and Father Mitch and the round table they did. So a lot of great stuff happening.
Yeah. And again, I also want to just say to all you out there who are considering coming to one of these events in the future. Next year is going to be here in Birmingham, and then the following year it's going to be somewhere else in the country. These are great trips to get together as a family, great trips to just take that time to come and join the EWTN family, but the even bigger family of us Christians, body of Christ. So if you're thinking about it for the future, try to put it into practice. It's a great time. It's a great time.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Scott Anthony and Aaron Hostetter. Don't go away. We'll be back in a minute. Hi, welcome back to Life on the Rock. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
And Aaron.
Hello.
Nice to be here.
I thought we could just start by just introducing yourselves and what parishes you're at.
Sure. I work for St. Joseph and St. Patrick parishes in York, Pennsylvania. I've been there this is my 18th year.
Okay.
And I'm down in Norfolk, Virginia, and I am the youth minister there. I have been there, this is my 4th year.
Right. And when I first started speaking with Scott, the idea for the show was that we could talk about someone who's been in ministry for over 20 years, right? In youth
20
ministry.
years. Yep.
And someone who's just beginning, right? Aaron, you've been in for a couple, 2 or 3 years
This is
now.
my fourth year.
Fourth year. And Aaron, can you talk about your relationship to Scott, how that began and formed you as a youth minister?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So it started out basically, I grew up in the parish that Scott was the youth minister of, and back in Pennsylvania, I went through confirmation with him, and then somehow ended up in the youth group, and so that's really kind of where I was invited to a relationship with Jesus Christ in a personal way. That I always was Catholic, but the invitation to kind of stir that up in me. There was a desire for God always there, but I didn't quite recognize it for that. And so there was a lot of good things in seeing, just being there with Scott and having that experience. And I think through just the steady progression of him introducing me to Christ, the more I grew in my faith, the more I started to see maybe a passion to share that faith with others. And so, it started with maybe starting out in my high school and with my friends, but then I knew that there was probably a little something more to it. And so I talked to Scott all the time about it, and I ended up going to Franciscan University, Steubenville, to kind of further pursue that and to just to kind of discern whether this is what God wanted me to do, maybe full-time or maybe just as a volunteer. And so it's crazy how it all worked out. It was a wild ride, but now I'm in my 4th year of youth ministry.
What was it about Scott's program that kind of awakened you when you were a teenager?
Well, I think first and foremost, just his witness of the way he lived out his faith. And, I saw that he was first and foremost not a salesman, but a disciple. And so for me, you crave something authentic. When you're a young person, you have passion, you want to have, the real deal. And so if you're going to give your life to something, you don't want to give your life to something that is, wishy-washy or anything. You want the real deal. So I think just seeing his witness and having him kind of lead me to the source, lead me to Jesus himself, Jesus walked me through the rest of that. And so having seen him do the ministry and being there with him really opened up my eyes to youth ministry and living out the faith in general.
And Scott, I think that's a great point to make, because you're married, you have 7 kids, and you've been working at youth ministry for 20 years. So
Yeah.
you've sacrificed, worked hard, and that witness.
Must be partly insane too, I think, obviously.
But I think that witness of married life is so powerful today and needed, and that's maybe not explicitly part of your work, but clearly affects others who come in contact with you, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's you know, my family has been, you know, the thing that grounds me. I feel fortunate, like when I started ministry, it literally was.
I'm sorry, Scott, is that a picture of the youth group?
Yeah, that's called job security. When my oldest, Mary Kate, started coming to our youth group a few years ago, my wife and I realized that from now on, as long as I'm at the parish, there will be at least one, if not more than one kid of my own in the ministry. This year I'll have 4 of my children in of the 3 different youth ministry programs we have at the parish. So, you know, so it's procreation has become partly job security for me. So, and it's been great having my own kids there too. It was awesome. But
now you helped to mentor Aaron in the beginning of his work. What are some of the things you told him?
Well, I think I was very fortunate when I first started, you know, to have a couple people that were there for me. I think what was different for me is that those people weren't specifically maybe doing youth ministry. And so, you know, I just have found as I've gone into youth ministry, I didn't go into it thinking this would be a career, but I guess after 20 years, it's become a ministry career as well. And just several years ago, I just realized that, you know, there's so many young people that get into youth ministry and they love Jesus, they love the church, they're passionate about sharing their faith, and then they just get burned out, or they just get frustrated by something that happens that they weren't prepared for in ministry, maybe in a professional capacity or those kind of things. And it started to burden my heart that we had these young people that really felt that they were called to do such a vital ministry that the church needs, and then they were stopping. And you know, maybe some of them aren't called by God to do it, but I think more were than weren't. And I just thought, you know, I just have to be willing to share, you know, some of the burdens that I had and the pitfalls that I had and the mistakes that I made, and say, you know, this is normal. It's going to happen. It's okay. And if you need me to be someone you can vent to, please vent to me and call me and email me, and I'll be happy to give you some time and just cheerlead for you and encourage you. And so I think, you know, Aaron had a really good foundation by the time he got into doing youth ministry as a professional ministry, because he had been through our program and had his own conversion and had his own relationship with Christ, and obviously he got very good formation and catechetical training at Steubenville. But even with that, he interned for me one summer while he was in college, did a official internship with me, and got some of the behind the scenes kind of stuff that you don't see even in college. But even then, you get into that first year, and I think like any kind of job or ministry you start, that first year it can be overwhelming, and you have these questions, and sometimes you just feel like you want to rip your hair out. And to me, it was like, hey man, I want to be here for you. Call me anytime. And I don't think there were major things, you know, there was nothing earth-shattering. It was just the normal kind of human emotions and ups and downs and roller coasters of starting into the ministry. And you know, he'd call or email, and we just chat, and I was just happy to be there for him, and I'm excited that he's still doing it.
I know, Aaron, you pointed out to me that it's got to be a vocational call, right? What do you mean by that?
Well, it certainly is. It has to be a ministry. I mean, you can't just run into it, and you know, God really needs to be calling you to it. You know, if you're going to be doing youth ministry, if you just run into it, and you know, and it's not something maybe God's calling you to, that's, you know, you're going to probably burn out,
right.
and because it really takes a special kind of dedication, commitment, and you know, prayerfulness. You know, it's really not. It's not for everyone.
And for you, some of the signs that, hey, this is what God is calling me to do. What was that for you?
Well, certainly, you know, you can look at a lot of different things, like just a passion to share the faith, and a passion, you know, just to in like bringing it to others, and just in your prayer, a lot of doors opening for it to possibly happen, and then definitely for me, a lot of it was when I started getting into the field of, getting in retreats, doing different types of activities that were going to be in my future for youth ministry. Once you're in that, you kind of get a more, detailed sense of, okay, this is what the behind the scenes is going to be. It's not just a glamorous, you're not just hanging out with teens and eating pizza.
Right.
There's a lot more
Right.
that goes into youth
Right.
ministry. And so, you really need to know that before you go into it, because, it's important that you know what you're saying yes to.
I know one thing that struck me, I know, Scott, about your model is that there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of adults, a lot of volunteers, there's core team members, as you call
Absolutely.
them, and stuff. So, a person might be called to serve in that way, and others might be really called to serve in a very full-time way,
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think certainly, there's a difference, even though whether you're volunteer or paid, I think there has to be that calling. But, there is a difference between, I come in and do maybe the one part of a retreat or one part of an evening with the teens that I've committed to doing, versus kind of trying to, the person who's coordinating things is kind of the vision keeper. They're trying to see, the bigger picture with all of it. And that is, it is a different beast. But then that's why it's so important to have a core team, because you can't do, it can't be a one-man show.
Right.
There's got to be, there's a wide variety of teens, and I'm going to connect. My personality is going to connect with certain teens on a personal level, and there's other teens I'm not going to necessarily connect with. And so having a variety of adults on a core team is very helpful, to doing ministry to a wide variety of teens to try to connect with them.
Right.
So it's imperative to have a core team and people.
And you mentioned to me about the importance of having men. It's harder sometimes to get the men involved,
Sure.
but their witness is very much needed
Absolutely.
in ministry.
Absolutely. I think my experience in working in parish ministry for the last 20 years is across the board. It seems to be a phenomenon that there's more women involved than men with various ministries, and we get a lot of moms that are willing to, volunteer their time, and they're all wonderful for those of you that are watching, and they're awesome. But there's such a special witness of some of the dads that we have now and have had in our core team that they might not say a whole lot with their words, but just being there and interacting with the kids and being so faithful in prayer, and they see that example that you talked about earlier of being faithful to their wives and being good fathers and good husbands, and the kids need to see that, and it's beautiful.
You mentioned a story about a guy he didn't seem to have the youth ministry gifts, wasn't a great speaker, dazzling or hip, but he would shoot baskets with the guys.
Yeah, he just shoots hoops with the guys. It's Todd, and he was helping out even when Aaron was there.
I remember playing basketball.
It's just such a witness to get together with the kids and just building those relationships with the kids, and that's such an important part of the ministry. So.
I know one thing that struck me too in our conversation was, sometimes we've been through a time where it was a lot of, sometimes you could say just too much fun and games.
Sure.
And maybe trying to stress a relational component without enough teaching. But you haven't done one or the other, right? You involve both. In fact, you talk about the importance of the relational aspect. Aaron, maybe I'll throw this one to you. Why is that so important with the young people?
Well, I mean, we really need to build up a community sense within the church, and especially with high school teens, if we're calling them to live out a life of holiness, we need to build an environment where they can do that first, and then bring that out to the world. And so it's imperative that we in our ministries will build a relationship with the people, and not just have it be like a classroom, but really kind of like a family where we're building relationships. We're building we're growing as a family. We're growing into the same vision of the whole parish. You want to have this constant movement towards Christ in a strong way. And so when Satan tries to get the kids, the best way to do it is divide and conquer. When you get them by themselves, you can have a powerful retreat experience, but if you're going home and there's no one to support you and no one to encourage you to live that out, that's really hard to hold up on that. And so, but then when you have people with you, encouraging you, someone to go to hang out with instead of that party or whatever it might be. It's a much more powerful witness and a much greater way to be able to grow as a whole ministry.
Right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Aaron Hostetter and Scott Anthony, so don't go away. We'll be back in a minute. All right, welcome back. And Doug, you had a question for us.
Yeah, youth ministry in general, why? I mean,
That was a good way to put it.
I mean, if we put it, why do we have to have youth ministry? I mean, for some people who might think that youth ministry and youth groups and this sort of thing is just a nice social thing for the kids. But you've been doing it long enough, and you as well now. And I've been speaking to kids for close to 25 years and ran youth groups when I was younger. There's a varying degree of kids coming from different backgrounds. Some of these kids are not getting fed at all,
Right.
and some of these kids know nothing of their faith. And then you've got some that are further along. But Scott, if you could start by telling us, why is it necessary? Why should people be seeing this? Because when you're talking earlier, Aaron, about it's a call. There's a call to this, and someone in the audience is thinking, well, call for what? Go talk to kids? What's the big deal? A lot of people don't understand it. Why is this necessary?
I think it's so vital, and I don't say that just for job security or anything. I mean, it really is. It really is so vital. I know I'll talk sometimes. Go to parishes or a parish council. Someone say, "Oh, you come talk to our pastor, to the pastoral council, and about why we need youth ministry at our parish." And I'm happy to go do that, and I'll be there. And someone will inevitably say, well, how can we afford to do youth ministry?
Right.
And my response to that is, how can you afford not to do youth ministry? It's just it's so vital. I was telling Father Mark earlier when we were talking that there was this large study called the National Study of Youth and Religion that was done several years ago. And what they did is they interviewed all thousands of teenagers across the country about their belief systems and what they believe in, and then how they live according to those belief systems. And a lot of those kids were Catholic. So you end up with data that showed things from overall, and then you had data that showed just from maybe the Catholic subset. And when they compared, the bad news was when you compared the Catholic school students across, or Catholic students across the board, to non-Catholic students, whether they were young people that were Protestant or evangelical or atheist or whatever, and then they asked them questions about moral behaviors or destructive behaviors. Unfortunately, the Catholic teens were at the same percentage levels as everybody else. They weren't lower. In other words, they were doing the same kind of destructive behaviors or immoral behaviors that everyone else was doing at the same level. And then what they did though is they said, well, now let's dig a little bit deeper into the data, and they found out that if you say, okay, let's look at Catholic kids who go to Mass every week with their families and who are involved also in a parish youth ministry program. What are those kids' levels? And they all went dramatically down. They all went dramatically down. So what's happening is it was nice for those of us that do youth ministry that believe that was true. It was nice to have the empirical data to back it up. That when kids, look, nobody wants to be lonely. So the kids, just as teens, they want to have fun. I mean, they're like the joy in the life of the church, right? They just want to have fun. So they don't want to be lonely. And so part of that fun part of the youth ministry is that they have a place where they can come and have a good time and be with friends and be with peers. And they love to laugh and joke and fool around. But at the same time, they're now surrounded by peers that also are encountering God the same way they're encountering God, also hopefully developing that personal relationship with Christ. And so then they have people to hang out with on the weekends outside of youth ministry gatherings. They become true friends with one another, and then they're not as exposed to maybe some of those destructive behaviors that other teens might be tempted to be involved in, to fit in with the other kids. And so I think that's such an important part of it, because they get to see that there's adults and other teens their own age that can have fun and can be real people, but also who love God passionately and love the church. And I was telling Father earlier, I mean, Aaron, coming through our program and now being his own youth minister, when he comes back, to York to visit family and friends, he still has very strong relationships with people that he was involved in youth ministry with. And he's been out of high school for 8 or 9 years at this point. And the adults that ministered to him when he was younger, I mean, he still has close relationships with them all these years later. And he doesn't hang out with the guys from his football team, that he was at football with. I mean, he hangs out with the people that he formed these good, wholesome, true friendships with.
Relationships that were based and rooted more in Christ.
Yeah.
Than in something of a worldly, secular
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah, there's the famous quote that the youth are the future of the church, which I've said several times on the show here, that I think we need to add to that. But the future of anything is only as good as it is trained to be. Yeah. Because just like Aaron is, being trained and has learned, from you, we pass this on. If we're not passing on the faith, like you say, how can we not afford to do it?
Right.
I've spoken at many, many conferences around the country, and oftentimes the main stage is really dolled up and looks really great. And the little section where they put the youth, you get a podium and a couple of tables and a chair, and maybe a statue in there. And you think, well, you don't think the kids can see this?
Or pizza.
Yeah, exactly. You throw a little pizza in there. We don't think that they get an understanding of what we're saying to them. If we don't put the time and the effort and the energy into forming and shaping the young people, then the generations to come, problems. Serious
what
problems.
is the effect on the parish of a strong youth program? What have y'all seen in that area?
You want to start?
I mean, it's
I can answer too.
incredible. I mean, because you're not just talking about the conversion of a particular set of teenagers that are growing together. You're talking about all of their families included. And then you have people in the parish that are seeing these young people living out their faith and being passionate and vibrant, and it restores hope for the older parishioners in your church. And you're seeing this, and it excites people. I remember coming to St. Joe's coming back. I think I was maybe in my first or second year of college, and I just came back and I just was at a mass. And at the end of Mass, this old man he stopped me as I was coming out of the pew, and he said, "I just want you to know that I think you're the most reverent man I've ever seen in my life." In praying with the Mass, and I'm thinking, like, what the heck did I do? I don't think I was doing anything special, or having my pious pose going on or anything like
so
that.
You weren't levitating or bilocating at that point? Okay.
He was hiding a stigmata too.
Good.
You had the gloves on?
But it's incredible, because you don't realize what the impact can be. And
and that's where the youth aren't just the future of the church. I tell the teens that I work with and go around and speak at different retreats and stuff across the country as well, and I'll tell them, you guys do not understand, okay, the power you have. The power you have. Nothing is more inspiring and challenging to adult Catholics than to see young people on fire for Jesus Christ. I mean, it cuts you to the heart if you're not living it, and if you're trying to live it, it fills you with that hope, and I guess now that I'm 41, I'm not a young adult anymore, so I guess I'm going to be an old fogey too, but, it warms my heart too when I see young people, especially in our culture, which is so much more difficult. I used to, 7 or 8 years ago, tell people, gosh, the teens I'm working with are dealing with stuff that I didn't even remotely know about until I was maybe college age. And honestly, now I can say there's stuff that they're dealing with in 5th or 6th grade that I never dealt with because I didn't have a cell phone when I was in 5th or 6th grade or 12th grade or college. I didn't have the internet access. I mean, so there's things that these kids are dealing with in our culture that are so evil. And Satan, it's like the thrust of his attacks are on our young people. They're on our young people to tear apart the families and destroy these young people. And so youth ministry is right there, not just to kind of put out fires for some of the kids that are just floundering and things, but also to be preventative too, to give those kids that, have that faith and want something deeper, to want to believe that something's real out there. That's true.
Madison Avenue marketing is also on the teenager, right? Because they're
Absolutely.
out there buying a lot of stuff and a lot of media and all that. So they're selling to these kids, and
Right.
they're trying to have this great impact on that. So you talk about that, Aaron, about the challenges of being kind of, as a youth minister, to kind of know what they are dealing with, what the culture is trending, and to be aware of that. And that's important as a past youth minister?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's crazy how Scott was mentioned that, and even for me, even from the time that I was in high school, the kids that that I'm ministering to today, it's a different reality that even they're facing than what I had, and so, it's important to kind of keep your hand on the pulse of the culture, and so that what they're being sold, what they're being taught. And the kind of media that they put into their hearts and their minds, and so you kind of need to be able to see that, to be able to be all things to all people. You know where they're at, so you can meet them there and bring them to Christ.
What has been another challenge for you as a young youth minister?
Well, there's certain things that you don't learn until you are there, and so I mean, you can think you have everything prepared for. You can study as much theology as you want. There's just a point where you just have to learn on the fly, by experiencing things in the parish. Just like I said before, like some people don't realize what goes on to make youth ministry happen, like administrative work. Juggling, dealing with, working within a parish and a parish office, ministering to, parents, to your volunteer members and your teens and their families. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it all at once. And so, kind of until you're doing it, and there's really no way that you can be ready.
And it's hard to balance all those things.
Yeah,
right?
and and there's you learn. I mean, you learn through little failures and just like wisdom of other people that are around you that that have experience. And even in my own parish, you lean on the people that have been there and that know what they're doing. And so you just you be grateful that I've had that to work with, in all these situations. Like, whoa, well, I could have never predicted certain situations, but when you have support, it makes everything a lot easier.
And for you, Aaron, what has been one of the greatest aspects of your ministry that's gotten the most kind of traction, that the young people have responded to? What have you done that's worked the best?
Oh wow, I don't know, but hopefully I just showed them that through my just kind of like the same way that Scott kind of appealed to me, just by being a disciple first, and hopefully they know that obviously I'm not perfect, but I'm striving to live out the Christian life, and and that means imperfectly, but always going towards that final goal with Christ. And so hopefully they just see that witness of my constant striving to be to grow in holiness, and to call them to something that I would do myself first, and I would never call them to a life that I wouldn't live myself.
So does the free food and the cash prizes help too?
Yes.
We use gift cards now, Doug.
There you go, gift cards, right.
Whatever.
Whatever gets them in the door.
Yeah, you do whatever you can sometimes to, again, that's part of the fun, and
Well, you think of St. Don Bosco, and
we think about him all the time.
He'd gamble, he'd ride his bike
Yep.
backwards, he'd walk a tightrope, he'd do whatever he could, then he'd get into the
Absolutely.
oratory.
My favorite was
and
his
he'd
foot
teach
racing. He would always foot race the young people, and he never lost a race.
I couldn't do that.
Now, I hear you arm wrestle like a lot of the 6th, 7th, 8th graders, and you're just hammering them just to get them in the
Not
door.
so
right?
much. They actually hammer me with water balloons in the face, so it's
Aaron gets pranked a lot with his group, so
I receive the love of God in various forms.
Well, we're going to take
That's watery.
a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute, so don't go away. Hi, welcome back. Scott, I know you've got a lot of projects going on that we can't get into right now, but you talk about the importance of simplicity and consistency in ministry. Could you?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking, that there might be people watching the show that, maybe they're a volunteer in their parish. The pastor came to them and said, hey, we need a youth group. You do it. And then out of guilt or being, carjacked into youth ministry or whatever, they're like, okay.
That's how it happened to me.
It is how it happens sometimes. Yeah, God tricked me too. But they might be sitting here hearing some of this stuff and going, well, that all sounds great, but I don't have a killer youth room, and I don't have a budget, and I didn't go to Franciscan University and get trained, which neither did I. I went there, but I didn't get trained for that. But and so. Then you can also start comparing yourself, to the .com church down the street, the big mega church. Say, wow, they got the lights and the cameras and all this other kind of stuff. And
Starbucks.
Yeah, and they got the coffee shop in their sanctuary, and you can just start to get overwhelmed by that. And to me, I think it's important to mention that, if you're in that situation, simplicity and consistency, I think, are so important. Yes, I've been at the parish now for 18 years. We have a lot of different things going and things all over the place, and all these core team members and all this great stuff. But when I first started, there was sometimes, hardly any kids that showed up. And I had one adult volunteer, and we just said, you know what, they'd had several years of starting and then failing youth ministry when I got hired, and they said, this is the pattern for the last 4 or 5 years. And I said, well, then all we want to do is convince the kids that we're not going anywhere, that this parish is committed to them, and we're just going to be simple and consistent, week in and week out, and it's a journey. It's not that one big thing. I remember the very first year I was there at the parish. I love telling this story, it's just because it's a really cool God story, some of the kids, we only had about 7 or 8 kids that came consistently. And we said, what would you guys like to do around, Christmas time? They said, oh, let's go Christmas caroling. So, we got all these cookies, and we made all this hot chocolate, and we set up everything, decorated in the gym, with Christmas decorations, and waited for the kids to show up. Me and Karen Norton were the only volunteers at the time. We're waiting and waiting and waiting, and 7 o'clock comes, and nobody's there. 7:05, one girl shows up. Her name was Liz. 7:10, we're kind of awkwardly eating cookies. No one else is there. 7:15, no one's coming. And in your mind, as the youth leader has put all this work together, you're going, darn it, come on. And
after is that really what comes to your mind?
Yeah. And God, how come, there's no one else here?
I failed.
Yeah, exactly. You're feeling like this is crazy. And at about maybe 7:20, you got done with the awkward kind of questions and nibbling cookies, and she said, well, I guess I'll call my dad to come get me. And what my brain said was, yeah, you should. I'll go home to my family now because this sucks.
You think you'll call your dad
I'll call him too. Yeah, I might cry to my dad.
He's in New Mexico,
exactly,
right?
But what came out of my mouth was, no, don't call your dad. And she was like, what? And Karen was like, what? And I'm like, look, did you come here to Christmas Carol? And she said, yeah. I said, then we're going Christmas caroling. And she was like, okay. And the 3 of us went out and Christmas caroled. And it was probably the worst group of Christmas carols that anyone has ever had come to their house. Knock, knock, knock. What was wrong with you people? We're singing these songs. And we did that for like an hour. And just the 3 of us walked around and did the Christmas caroling, and then we left. She was a freshman, and the next couple of years, I would overhear her occasionally talking to new people, and she'd say something like, even if you're the only one that comes, they'll still do youth group just for you. And we don't ever have that issue anymore. There's never a time that only one kid comes, but and that was God. But that's that simple, consistent developing their relationship, the relational ministry, and do that. And I saw that with Aaron.
And that's the heart of the relational ministry you're talking about, right? Is that the kids feel like they're receiving a message from people that are love them and committed to them.
Absolutely.
And Aaron, you say that the spiritual awakening you had was built up like that gradually, right?
Yeah, it was. It was never just one big retreat, one big moment. For me, it was just gradual, consistent, week to week to week to week. Just being there and just having them. They were there every week, and even though not every week was the most profound epiphany, but the fact is that they were there, and the relationships were being built every single week. And every single week I was being invited, to, that relationship with Christ, to a conversation in prayer, to different things that just opened up and awakened me to the sacred. And so for me, I don't really point to like, oh, this moment or that moment, but really just a gradual, ongoing conversion.
Let's talk about, I know a theme our Holy Father loves to talk about is one of encounter with Christ. That as a Christian, we must encounter Him, and that changes everything. And I think that's what you all are talking about in this relational ministry. You shared with me earlier about how young people are very open to this encounter. How do you foster, maybe the youth minister at home listening to this, what would you tell them? How to foster this encounter?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, you have to be trying to foster that within yourself as well. Kids see through things that aren't real. They have a really great hypocrisy radar, not necessarily for themselves, but for everybody else. So they're going to see right through if you're just kind of spouting some lines off to spout them off. So if you're fostering within yourself and trying to maybe not always stay in your own comfort zone spiritually, but willing to, go out on a limb. And I think that's part and parcel of youth ministry anyway, is you have to be kind of stepping out on a limb a little bit. It's, people think, oh, you're so confident, you can do all this stuff. And it's like, you don't realize like how hard it is to get up there and know that you're going to look like a complete idiot half the time. And people are going to think you're a moron. But that's okay, because we're doing it for Jesus, But when you start to then, in those real moments, give those encounters. When the kids see an adult who, maybe will admit, hey, I have a hard time praying out loud with someone else. I have a hard time praying over someone or with someone. But they do it anyway because they care about that kid. That kid sees that example, and it makes a lasting impact in them. So, trying to give those relational moments and giving those moments of prayer and encounter of Christ, obviously in adoration and Mass and in the sacraments and confession, but also just in moments of prayer where you can have those, they can have a personal encounter with Christ when they come to prayer, where they can hear God speaking to them, where they start to take things they've learned about Jesus, and it starts to embed then into their hearts. I remember one girl that kind of came off and on with youth ministry, but she wouldn't come to retreats with us, wouldn't come to Steubenville Youth Conference with us, and kids kept pestering her, and finally after her senior year, the last chance she could go on a conference with us, she went. And I asked her at the end of the weekend, it seemed like she had a great time, and I said, if you could sum up in one sentence what building up to this has been for you, she said, everything that I learned up here for the last 12 years is moving down into here. And I think that's where you have those encounters with Christ. Kids in this millennial generation especially are very experiential. They're not going to just take something you say about the faith and believe it at face value. They need to experience it. You can tell someone till they're blue in the face, John chapter 6, read through it, go through it, teach them about Christ, teach them about the Eucharist. Or you can put them in front of the Eucharist, teach them a little bit, and then get out of the way and let Jesus work on their heart.
Right.
And then they walk away and they're like, I can't explain it right now, but Jesus is real. I want to know him more. Well, then once you fall in love with someone, you want to know everything you can about them.
Now, Aaron, you're nodding your head. You told me before about maybe getting the kids to kind of quiet down and to separate. And you said they're very open to that, right? To that spiritual awakening?
Yeah, I mean, they young people are passionate, and they have they have strong desire for God, and they don't always realize that. But I remember there's a quote from John Paul II. It's Jesus that you long for when you dream of happiness. And when they are called to something great, they always respond, because no young person, nobody wants to be lukewarm. Nobody wants to think that that your life doesn't have meaning. And when they find that in Christ, that they have a mission specific to them, and He's calling them to greatness, that those are the kind of things that really move the young generation. And there's nothing that really can stop them at that point.
Right.
And Pope Benedict XVI, said that quote. The world can offer you comfort, but we were not created for comfort. We were created for greatness. And that theme echoes very strongly in young people. Sometimes in older people, there's more baggage and there's more, they're more jaded. And sometimes, unfortunately, you do see young people that are like that too. It breaks my heart when I go to a confirmation retreat of 13 and 14-year-old kids, and people are like, oh, I'm scared the kid shouldn't be asking questions and have doubts. I'm like, no, if a kid has doubts and questions and they're willing to ask it and they're still searching, they're still looking, those are kids I can take. Give me all the questions you have. It breaks my heart when I see a 13 or 14-year-old kid that their heart is closed. It's so broken. It's so walled up. But when you start talking to them about, what were we created for? How do, what do we all want out of life? We're all looking for happiness. We're all looking for love. We're all looking for purpose. We're all looking for peace. And the world is offering them shadows of those things. And then when their hearts become open to the realization that Christ is everything that they're looking for, they grasp onto that. They found that pearl of great price, and it's not like they grasp onto it and never sin again, because none of us do that. It's not like they, but they're open to it. Absolutely.
So the two themes there I think we're touching upon is like this personal encounter with Jesus, but also with a fellowship with other believers.
Absolutely.
That opens the heart as well,
Sure.
right? To have this,
Yeah.
to build real friendship and relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us were created to be Lone Ranger Christians.
Right.
Christ established the church, right? And He had His own 12 apostles and community. I mean, God Himself, Father, Son, and Spirit, is a community of persons,
Right.
a community of love. And so
We're made in that image.
We are.
Now, let's just jump back to the practical a minute. No youth minister can do it all by themselves.
Right.
Well, I know I couldn't believe the list of helpers you have, Scott. How do you, say a youth minister is listening to this, what advice would you give them in selecting a team to help you?
Well, if you're brand new to a parish or you're brand new to ministry, a good place to start off is with the pastor. If you're getting hired someplace and you're getting interviewed, I would say to the pastor, are you going to help me find people that can do this ministry? Will you help me identify people? I'm not from here. I don't know them. And you have to have that kind of commitment. And then it's a better bet, instead of giving out a big broad announcement at Mass or at a bulletin, I think, and saying, hey, whoever's out there, we need helpers. You need to identify and target certain people that are prayerful, that seem emotionally and spiritually stable. Let's face it, some of the kids are dealing with so many different things. They need adults that are stable with them. They can't have adults that are spiritually and emotionally immature. So you look at those people and then you invite them. A personal call, personal conversation, a letter that explains what you're looking for, and then bring them into it, and then equip them, and train them and give them power, empower them to say, you can do this. That it's not Scott Anthony or Aaron Hostetter and our little, minions who help us do this. But, at our parish, I look and I say, every single person on my core team is a youth minister. Our parish doesn't have one youth minister. Our parish has dozen.
And people really contribute. It's a real contribution.
Absolutely. I have nothing but respect for my volunteers. They're the greatest people in the world.
Okay. Any parting shots? We got about 3 minutes. Something we didn't hit upon that you'd like
Gosh, there's so much you could go to. I guess feel in my heart, as I said earlier, just that encouragement to people. that I was thinking of the people who might be watching this. You know, might be young people thinking about doing ministry, or people that have been snagged into ministry in some way, to not, you know, give up if God's really calling you to this.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Find a support group. Heck, I think they put my website up there earlier. You know, contact me. I'd be happy to, you know, continue to, you know, give you encouragement as well.
What are the top couple of things you would encourage or recommend to any youth minister to make sure that they're staying on track and within themselves spiritually and educationally and so forth, so they don't burn out?
Prayer, Eucharist,
pray.
you know, have a good support group that's outside of the parish community.
Yep.
You know, friends, if you're single like Aaron, for me, it's been my family. You know, my wife is great. She's grounded me since the very beginning. You know, I started into full-time ministry after I was already married, and, you know, she said, you will take 2 days off every week, and, you know, from the parish, and get away from there, and, you know, tried to do that over the years. So, and that just keeps you grounded. You know, have friends and interest outside of that. You know, you're not there to be the kid's friend in relational ministry. You're there to be their mentor and to walk with them on the journey. You don't have all the answers yourself. That's okay. You're just there to, you don't have to be perfect and pretend to be something you're not.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Sharing your experience with us.
Thank you for having
It's
us.
been a great treat.
Thanks.
Well, the Lord be with you.
With your spirit.
May our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace and fill you with every good gift and grace. And may Almighty God bless you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
We'll see you next week.